Today is Thursday, so we talk about success for Scrum Masters. We've been sharing success stories here on the podcast since 2015, so there's a lot to learn. But wouldn't you like to learn from people with decades of experience? Well, don't worry, we've got you covered. The Scrum Master Toolbox podcast launched Tips from the Trenches, the Scrum Master Edition audiobook. That's version 2 now out. There are 13 audio interviews, 3 hours of audio with Scrum Masters that have decades of experience. We've got Mike Cohn, Linda Rising, Lisa Crispin, Christopher Avery, Emily Weber, myself, your podcast host, Yves Hanul, the editor of the original Tips from the Trenches ebook, also available with the audiobook. Altogether, 13 super experienced Scrum Masters. To learn more, visit bit.ly/audiotips2. That's bit.ly/AUDIOTIPS and the numeral 2 at the end, all lowercase, all one word. So one more time, that's bit.ly/audiotips2 to learn more. And now, on to today's show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Success Thursday, this week with Chris Stone. Hi, Chris. Welcome back.
Hi, Vasco. Let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do this. So, Chris, on Thursdays, we talk about success for us as Scrum Masters, but we always start with one of those tools that we hope to use to reach a successful outcome. That's the retrospective. So share with us, what's your favorite retrospective format and why?
Okay, so Vasco, if you haven't gathered from our earlier discussions this week, I'm a storyteller. And due to this, my favorite retro format is the hero's journey. Now, the way I start with the hero's journey retrospective is it begins before the retrospective. I start by emailing the team that I'm working with a few days before the retro, and that email begins with fellow adventurers. Right, so we start to set the scene. It tells the people involved that we're embarking on an adventure together, a journey, the hero's journey. So this retro format, if you're familiar with it, it parallels a context I'm sure we're all familiar with from movies and books. You've got a hero, a protagonist who has his or her own idiosyncrasies, strengths and weaknesses and motivations. They go for a bit of a journey. We learn of their guide or their mentor. They've got their equivalent Yoda or Mr. Miyagi from Karate Kid that looks to point them in the right direction and helps them achieve their goal. We learn of their cavern, their risks, the Darth Vader or the kid from Cobra Kai, again, back to the Karate Kid movie, who may come in the way and stop them from achieving their goal. And lastly, we think of their treasure, the things that will make them successful, what it is that they're moving towards, the desired state or outcome that they're looking to achieve. Now, why do I love this retrospective format? Because for me, it's simple, it's fun. I've genuinely had the feedback, I did not know retros could be fun. And through it, I get to tell a story. So whilst it's my favorite retro format, I also personally make it a mission of mine to ensure that I do a different retro format every time I work with a team, whether that's sailboat, hot air balloon, sad, mad, glad, or even creating my own ones. I've done a Game of Thrones one, a rugby and cricket World Cup theme retro. Too often I hear teams doing the same old, what went wrong, what can we do better, what actions will we take style. And it becomes stale and it can be boring. So I try to keep things fresh and engaging and interactive as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And also one very easy, if you have a format like the Hero's Journey format, it's one very easy way to overcome one of the biggest objections to spending time doing a retro. That's how people very often refer to it. It is because it's fun, right? And obviously it's not just going to be fun, it's going to be insightful, and we're going to create ideas on how we improve as a team. But if it starts by being fun, it already eliminates one of the objections for teams to participate in a retro.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Chris, we use the retro and, the Hero's Journey format, as you described, and other formats to try to help the team be successful. But now I would like to ask you what you think it means or how you describe when you, as a Scrum Master, are successful. So share your definition of success for Scrum Masters with us, Chris.
Okay, so this is a very easy question for me because it's an ethos that I live by. If you were to check my LinkedIn, my personal README file, you'll see the words, I exist to make myself redundant. And what I mean by this is if I've been successful, I'll no longer be needed. I'll have enabled an environment where people can take it upon themselves to live and breathe agile principles and values, and they don't require me to act or intervene because they're doing so themselves. And I'll tell you a story as to what I think contextualizes this, and it's a personal story of mine. It's completely anecdotal. So years ago, I decided to change, about 3.5 years ago. I was unhappy with my weight, my levels of fitness. I'd always yo-yoed with my weight. I was always very sporty. I played hockey and cycled, among other things. But like many of us, I enjoyed food and beer and things like that with my team and my friends. And I also incorrectly believed that if I wanted to lose weight, I should just do cardio and go for a run. So I decided to change. And the way I changed was I got myself a coach, a personal trainer, Alex. This marked the start of my journey. I learned from him about lifting weights, form, technique. I learned about nutrition and developing positive habits. I learned lots of things which ultimately helped me get to where I am today. Now, if we go 1.5 years later down the line from when that journey started, I probably didn't need Alex anymore. I knew all of the movements I wanted to do in the gym. I didn't need the correction on form that I was previously getting. I would turn up to my sessions and I'd be told which exercises I was doing as per the program that he'd written for me. And I was self-aware that I probably didn't need him, but what I did still need was accountability. For me, I needed those sessions in the diary to push me to get to the gym and put the effort in. And if I didn't have something booked in, I probably wouldn't do the workout or I wouldn't keep improving. And I also still needed Alex to write me those programs because whilst I could do them, I couldn't think forward and think about what exercises I could do that would get me improving going forward. So if we reflect on where I am today, obviously this year, COVID hit. And that forced me not to see Alex anymore. Now, I'd spent years and years developing good habits, but I didn't want to stop there or lose my progress. So this year, I'd focused more on nutrition than ever. I continued working out from home. I began collecting more gym equipment. So I've got myself a home gym now. And what I've learned from this is that I've been able to keep myself accountable. I can now write and devise my own programs. And this year, actually, I've lost 27 kilograms and I'm keeping going. So what I've gotten to the point of is I definitely no longer need Alex anymore. In fact, I don't need a public gym, if I'm honest. I've got equipment from home that I can perfectly use, but I still go to that gym a few times a week for the social side of things. So what I've gained from this story and what I'm trying to convey through this is that through Alex, through having a coach, I gained autonomy, the ability to act of my own fruition without his intervention. And this to me is basically what I define as success as a Scrum Master Agile coach. If you can enable autonomy for those that you're working with to act without your intervention, to do so of their own fruition, to think of their own ideas and experiments, then I think you're off on the right track.
There's one thing just one thing that I wanted to highlight that you mentioned, which I think even perhaps requires a little bit more in-depth explanation, which is this idea that when you started with Alex, one of the reasons why you hired Alex to be your coach was that you needed the accountability. And very often we forget that as Scrum Masters, we are there also to become accountability partners for the teams, right?
We absolutely are. It's actually why I'm exploring the concept. And this is very raw at the moment, but I would like to create an agile coaching or Scrum Master contract between the squad and the team that enables both parties there to define what does success look like? How frequently do we want to meet? Where do we need support most? Those sorts of things. How are we going to keep each other accountable? And I know these sorts of things exist in terms of a mentoring contract, but it's something that I would like to create and experiment with and see if it's going to be of value in the future as well.
Absolutely. That's a great idea, by the way. That's one of the things that I very often talk about with teams is that I'm here to help you. So first, I need to understand what help do you want? Because if you don't want help, then it's not up to me to offer. It's up to you to request. I can talk about many things. I can share ideas. I can share experience. But if it's not relevant to you, then it doesn't have a place.
Couldn't agree more. And it comes down to the frequency of help as well. You might have a more mature team that maybe doesn't need your input in every single ceremony, but they might identify and be self-aware of a certain weakness in one of their ceremonies, and they might say, Could you help us with those? But we don't need you in our stand-ups every day. So I think frequency, as well as how you'll keep each other accountable and actually what you need help with, is important to define. And I think having a Scrum Master / Agile contract between the team and the coach could be a very powerful way of identifying where those are, setting that as a baseline. And you could also then, through retrospectives, revisit that in the future and say, right, what have we learned since then? Do we still need this anymore? Do we want to adjust our frequency?
Absolutely. And constantly check. And one of the things that I do with the people that I coach is exactly that we have that contract. And actually, we check it regularly, right? We review it. Is this still valid? Has something changed that would require us to change this contract?
Yeah. And I think for me, I've observed examples of people working more autonomy, specifically in my working life, in my current situation today. So an example is a few weeks ago, I kicked off a new experiment, Recognition Friday, where I posted on the company Slack channel. I said, guys, let's celebrate success. Let's talk about performance. We don't need a once a year performance appraisal process to share when someone's doing great work, which for me helps, embody agile principles, celebrating success, recognizing and learning. And in the first week of that, it had lots of engagement. The second week, I did it again. The buzz starting to feel a bit tangible. People are using it. Today, this morning, was the third week of it. I'm about to go and post it, and it's already been done. Someone has taken it upon themselves to create that thread. And that, to me, is someone in a different time zone. And they've basically started, and they've called out a tranche of people for their great work already. So it took only 2 weeks to start an experiment and begin to see results. So I guess the top tips I'd have around the concept we're exploring today is, if you're trying to investigate whether you're being successful in your role, start by performing experiments. And obviously, ethically, you can perform experiments on your squad. But if you want to know if they're self-organizing, don't kick off the ceremony or pretend you have audio issues for a few minutes and just see what happens. So if I'm in a ceremony and if they start it without you, you're on the right track. If you're there and you're observing them exhibiting behavior without your intervention, perfect. If they start coming up with their own experiments without seeking your advice on whether it's a good idea, excellent. However, if you're starting to see, or you're observing that they're waiting for you to kick off a ceremony, or they're looking for your intervention all the time to determine whether something's correct,
or they don't have it, right? Like they just
don't have it, then to me that's just a sign that there's a bit more work to be done, and that's okay. It's all part of the journey. You haven't yet made yourself redundant.
Exactly. We don't go from point A to point B in one step. There's many steps in between. Thank you for that, Chris.
No problem. Happy to share.
Part of a successful Scrum Master job is to help the product owner. Tomorrow we explore that critical role in Scrum, the product owner role. Tune in to learn about product owner anti-patterns, what you can do to help the product owner, and a real-life example of what a great product owner is and what made it so. Tomorrow on our Friday Product Owner episode. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.